Colonization is a bitter history because it involved the subjugation and exploitation of indigenous peoples and their lands by foreign powers for their own economic and political gain. Colonizers often viewed the people they encountered as primitive and uncivilized, and believed that they had a duty to civilize and Christianize them. This often involved violence, forced labor, land confiscation, cultural suppression, and the imposition of foreign values and beliefs on the colonized peoples. Colonization led to the displacement of indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands, loss of cultural identity, destruction of traditional ways of life, and the erosion of social structures. It also had lasting effects on economies, politics, and social relations that persist to this day in many former colonies. Moreover, colonization often brought about the introduction of diseases that indigenous populations had no immunity to, resulting in epidemics that caused significant loss of life. In some cases, colonizers deliberately spread diseases as a means of controlling or exterminating the native population. Overall, colonization is a bitter history because it represents a period of exploitation, oppression, and injustice that has had a lasting impact on the lives of many people around the world. There are several untold facts about colonization that are not often taught in mainstream history, but are important to understand in order to fully appreciate the impact of colonization on the world. Some of these untold facts include: 1. The role of African kingdoms in the slave trade. While the transatlantic slave trade was facilitated by European powers, it was also enabled by African kingdoms who captured and sold slaves to European traders. This is not often discussed, but it highlights the complex and multifaceted nature of the slave trade. 2. The use of forced labor in colonies beyond the Americas. While forced labor in the form of slavery is often associated with the Americas, it was also used in other colonies such as India and Southeast Asia. The British, for example, relied heavily on indentured labor from India to work on plantations in the Caribbean. 3. The long-term impact of colonization on gender relations. Colonization often disrupted traditional gender roles and power dynamics in colonized societies, leading to lasting social and cultural changes. For example, the imposition of European patriarchal values and the disruption of traditional economic activities led to the marginalization of women in many parts of the world. 4. The destruction of indigenous knowledge systems. Colonization often involved the suppression and erasure of indigenous knowledge systems, including traditional medicine, agriculture, and spiritual practices. This has had a lasting impact on the ability of indigenous peoples to maintain their cultural identity and way of life. 5. The ongoing legacy of colonization. While many former colonies have gained independence, the legacy of colonization persists in the form of economic inequality, political instability, and social fragmentation. These ongoing effects highlight the need for ongoing efforts to address the injustices of colonization and promote equity and justice for all people. The question of whether rich countries became poor because of colonization is a complex and contested one. While it is true that many formerly colonized countries are still struggling with poverty and economic underdevelopment, it is not necessarily the case that this is solely due to the legacy of colonization. There are many factors that contribute to poverty and underdevelopment, including economic policies, political instability, corruption, natural disasters, and global economic trends. While colonization certainly played a role in shaping the economic and political systems of many countries, it is not the only factor at play. Moreover, it is worth noting that not all colonized countries have remained poor. Some former colonies, such as Singapore and South Korea, have experienced significant economic growth and development in the post-colonial period. That being said, it is important to recognize the ways in which colonization has contributed to economic inequality and underdevelopment in many parts of the world. Colonization often involved the extraction of resources from colonized countries for the benefit of the colonizing powers, as well as the imposition of economic policies that favored the interests of the colonizers over those of the colonized peoples. This has had lasting effects on the economies of many former colonies. Additionally, colonization often disrupted traditional economic systems and social structures, leading to long-term social and economic instability. The legacy of colonization has also contributed to ongoing patterns of global inequality, with former colonizers maintaining economic and political power and influence over many formerly colonized countries. Overall, while the impact of colonization on the economic development of former colonies is complex and multifaceted, it is clear that colonization has played a significant role in shaping the global economic landscape and contributing to patterns of inequality and underdevelopment.